So we're going to start working on chemistry 1106, soluble and insoluble salts lab. This is lab number 15. And we're going to start off with part A. And so what we're going to do is we're going to get a bunch of soluble solutions. We're going to mix them, mix 2 of them at a time. And when we mix those 2, we're going to determine to see if that actually forms a precipitate. Okay, and a precipitate is nothing much more than an insoluble substance. So you'll have here, right, we'll have 2 solutions, and I'll go over it during the explanation. And so here we have solutions that are soluble in water. And so within those solutions, you have a bunch of floating ions in there. And so what we're going to do is we're going to add a dropper full of soap. Okay, so we went ahead and added our silver nitrate into our test tube. And so the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add some sodium chloride. And so as I add some sodium chloride, we're going to determine to see if a precipitate is formed. So we're going to add a few drops. And as soon as I drop the first one, you notice some cloudiness happening in their solution. And so that should be enough. Let me go ahead and take it off. Take the camera off from my head, so hopefully you can get a nice, whoops, sorry. So if you notice our solution, as we added the silver sodium chloride, it got nice and cloudy. And so hopefully you can see it from the bottom. You see those crystals forming. And so there is your insoluble product right there. And so this is the mixing of silver nitrate and sodium chloride, okay? We're gonna go ahead and do our second reaction. This reaction is gonna be from of silver nitrate, 0.1 molar solution, and we're gonna have some sodium sulfate here, okay? So then we're gonna go ahead and start off. It doesn't matter which one you start off with. We'll go ahead and get the staining solution here. Right? Go ahead and a little bit more to get a better effect, right? And then I'm gonna add a few droplets of sodium sulfate now. And so as we add 1, 2, and if you notice, I added the whole dropper full and nothing has happened yet. And I'll add some more, just in case, right? No, a little bit more, nada. Okay, so for sodium sulfate and silver nitrate solution, right? I'm gonna take it off my head so that you can see it. I'm gonna zoom in now. Whoops, I was zoomed in. And so as I get you closer, you'll notice that the solution remains clear and no precipitate was formed for this one. So again, this is gonna be a reaction of silver nitrate and your sodium sulfate. The next reaction is going to be between silver nitrate, right here again, and this time we're going to react it with sodium phosphate, okay? So silver nitrate and sodium phosphate, we're going to go ahead and get our dropper full. We got a test tube. And then, so now we've added our silver nitrate into our test tube. We're gonna go ahead and get it some sodium phosphate. Gonna add a few drops. Ooh, nice. We get some cloudiness, right? Some sexiness going in there. Okay, I'll add one more. All right. So you notice something clouded up, and it's a different color this time, right? Something different than we expected. So let me zoom you in so that you can go ahead and see, right? And if you notice, there is some settling at the bottom. And so here we have our yellow substance. And it did cloud up. It is cloudy. It is yellow. And if you can see the bottom of it, you'll notice some settling of that solid, or that precipitate, I'm sorry. Okay? So here again, this is a reaction between silver nitrate and sodium phosphate, okay? And we end up with this. Our next reaction, we're gonna go ahead and do calcium nitrate and we're going to react calcium nitrate with sodium chloride. And we're going to react them with the same ones we reacted silver nitrate with. So we're going to go sodium chloride first, sodium sulfate next, and then we're going to end up with sodium phosphate. So we're going to go ahead and start with calcium nitrate, 0.1 molar solution. Hopefully we can get a drop. After the addition of sodium, of our sodium chloride solution, right? And we got our calcium nitrate. We added both solutions in there, and as you can see, we still have a nice and clear solution. So again, nothing occurred in this one. So take down your observations and the formula of an insoluble salt, if any, in this case, none. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and try that again. So here we have a solution of calcium nitrate, 0.1 molar solution. And we're gonna run the second reaction, which is of the calcium nitrate group. And I'm gonna react it with sodium sulfate, and we're gonna see whether a precipitation forms. So here we have two solutions that are soluble in water. I'm gonna go ahead and get a couple of I'm gonna get about 2 dropperfuls, and here we have our setup, which is our what do you call it? Test tube. I'm gonna get a few droplets in there, and so now that I've added my calcium nitrate, I'm going to set it aside, and then now I'm going to get my sodium sulfate, and then I'm going to add dropwise first and see if anything occurs. I've added a few drops, nothing has happened, so I'm going to go ahead and add another dropper full, and nope, nothing happened. And as you can see, I'm going to zoom in for you all. If it helps, if it allows me to. You can see our solution is still clear. No precipitate forming of any sort. And so for this reaction for calcium nitrate and magnesium sulfate, that is what we get. So our next reaction, we're gonna go ahead and do our setup again. And the setup, we're gonna get a brand new test tube. And then we're gonna now react the last reaction, which is gonna be calcium nitrate, which is right there. And we're gonna react it with some sodium sulfate, 0.1 molar solution. We're gonna go ahead and start with the calcium nitrate. We're gonna get a dropper full. We're gonna go ahead and add it to our test tube. Let's go get and get another one. Gonna go ahead and drop it. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to get a dropper full of our sodium phosphate, and we're going to add it dropwise. Whoa! All of a sudden we get some excitement. And so now I'm going to go ahead and add it all. I'm going to return my dropper, and we're going to just kind of take a look at it from the bottom. And the reason why I go to the bottom is so that you can see that there is some settling of a solid at the bottom, at the base. We do get a cloudiness, and hopefully by putting my glove behind it, you can definitely see that cloudiness and the effect of substance coming out of solution, while there's some other stuff that within it still in solution. And so again, this is a reaction of calcium nitrate, right? And here we have sodium phosphate. Okay, so now your job is to determine one. It did precipitate, so now you have to determine what that precipitate is. So the first thing we're going to do for part B is going to be the solubility of potassium nitrate. And so here, as you can see, we have a substance of potassium nitrate. And what we're going to do is, first we're going to measure out, I'm going to try to see if I can get at least 3 value points in. In theory, each lab was supposed to do a specific mass, and then from there we're going to share data and develop our solubility curve for potassium nitrate. But in the case, right, we don't have everybody working on this, so because of that, I'm going to give you 3 data points, and hopefully we can get a good, nice little graph with it. And so what we're going to do is we're going to need, since I'm going to do 3 data points, we're going to need 3 test tubes. And I'm going to go ahead and add 5 milliliters of water to each test tube. And so hopefully, nope, doesn't want to happen. Give me a second. So again, we're going to add water. How much are we adding? We're trying to get to 5 milliliters. And we're going to do this 3 times because we're going to do three different sets. And I think we should be good right there, right? Yeah, as you can see, hopefully you can measure, right? 5 milliliters. That'll be our first container. Okay, so that'll go into our first test tube. We're gonna do this again to add 5 milliliters to our second test tube. And I think we should be good there. Get your measurement. We're gonna add about 5 mils. Go ahead and add it to our second test tube. And then lastly, we're going to do it one more time. And we should be good there. Yep, 5 milliliters. I'm gonna go ahead and add it to our test tube. As we do so, there we go. And so now that we've measured out our 3 test tubes, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna measure out our potassium nitrate. And we're gonna first measure out our potassium nitrate in. Okay, so then what we're gonna do next is, oh, I forgot my spatula. Where did I put it? Oh, here it is. So we're gonna go ahead and measure out 3 grams of the ammonium nitrate. And so here we're gonna have our scale, and ammonium nitrate. I'm sorry. Wow. Our potassium nitrate. And so here we have our scale and we have our weighing boat. And so what we're going to do is we're going to try to center it as much as possible. And then we're going to zero it out and we're going to measure out 3 grams approximately. Okay. And so whatever we measure out, we just got to make sure to write it down, right? And so we want to get about 3 grams. All right, so we're at 3.1, 3.2. So just go ahead and record that, right? That'll be the mass of our first test tube. And so let's go ahead and zoom it in case you can't see. It'll be 301, 3.2. And so that'll be our first sample, right? And so remember this mass, this substance, we're gonna go ahead and transfer it to our test tube. And then we're gonna go ahead and heat. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the other 2 masses as well, okay? So we're gonna remove this one, and then we'll start on the next. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go 3, so this one's gonna be 4 grams of the ammonium nitrate. So we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna kind of center it in the middle, and then we're gonna go ahead and zero it out. And we're gonna go ahead and add our substance, right? And it's gonna be approximately 4. We're just gonna record exactly the amount that we distributed. For slightly off, not a big deal. This one's gonna be 4 grams. Wow, I had it almost there. Anyways, so this one's going to be approximately 4.04 grams. Hopefully you can see. And then we're gonna go ahead and weigh 5 now. Whoops. We'll go ahead and weigh 5. Let's go ahead and put that one back on the scale to see if we lost any. We lost about 0.2. So just go ahead and record it again. 4.03. Be a little bit more careful this time. And then we're gonna go ahead and zero it out. Put our third weighing boat. This one's gonna be 5 grams, okay? So we're gonna go ahead and weigh 5 grams out. And there we go. Here we have approximately 5 grams, 5.01. And so this sample, like I said, all these 3 samples, we're gonna go right now to our test tube so that we can drop in our first one for 3 grams. And then I'll tell you what we're gonna do next. So again, 5.01. Oops. There you go. All right. Okay, so then we're gonna go ahead and add our sample. Let me get my spatula over here. We're gonna add our sample to our test tube, our first test tube, and remember that our first test tube we measured out 5 milliliters of water. And so now we're just gonna go ahead and add our potassium nitrate into our water sample, our 5 milliliters of water. And we got all of it. And so now, as you can see, here we have our test tube with 5 milliliters of water. What I'm gonna do now is I've already have my setup going on. So I got my thermometer, we got my test tube clamp, and here we have a water bath that we have been heating up for a bit. And so I'm just gonna heat it up slightly more, right? I'm gonna increase the heat. And so I just wanted to make sure that my beaker was already warm, and it is. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna place my test tube into the water bath. I'm gonna go ahead and submerge it and tighten it, okay? And then what I'm gonna go ahead and do now is I'm gonna place my thermometer inside in there, and I'm gonna get a stirring rod that I have here, and I'm gonna go ahead and mix the solution a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead and turn this to the side so I don't break it. And then, so I'm gonna go ahead and stir the test tube as it's heating, and then I'm gonna continue stirring until it dissolves. It says here to go ahead and do it with a thermometer, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I gotta be careful, don't want to break it. So then what I gotta do is I gotta stir. And then as soon as it dissolves, I gotta take the solution off the burner or off the heat, and then I gotta see the temperature that it cools down, and I gotta allow it to cool, and then I'm just gonna kind of leave the thermometer in there. And then once it's left in there, okay, then all I'm gonna do now is, what do I say? I gotta record the temperature as it's forming its crystals, right? Okay. So once I see that it all dissolves, I gotta remove it from the heat, and then allow it to cool down, and then as soon as I start seeing crystal formation, I gotta record the temperature. Now you gotta be careful in trying to pull this out. Pull the thermometer out while it's crystallizing, because we might break it. So what I have to do next after that is go ahead and put it back in the heat so that it heats up, and then once it dissolves, then remove it. Okay, so I'm going to continue doing this until it dissolves, and then we'll come back. So I'll go ahead and give you a different view of what I'm actually doing here. Let's go ahead and zoom out a little bit. And so as you can see, all I'm doing is, as I'm stirring, you can see a lot of it is dissolving. But I gotta continue. I did increase the heat a little bit. We're at about 5.5 to 6. And hopefully you can see that some of it is dissolving. Let's go ahead and, come on, there you go. So you can actually see it dissolve. Hopefully you can see what I see. Okay, and then like I said, we're gonna continue this until it is completely dissolved, and I'm gonna take it out of the heat. And once I take it out of the heat, then I'm gonna allow it to cool and stir slightly gently until I see some crystallization form. And then once I see the crystallization forming, then I record the temperature, and then I cannot stir anymore. Okay, so we'll come back. As you can see now, all of my salt has dissolved, all of my potassium nitrate has dissolved, and as you can see, I'm gonna zoom you in, hopefully. And as you can see, I have done dissolving the 3 grams into the 5 milliliters of water. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and remove this from the heat. Okay, and then we're gonna slowly stir slowly and cool down at the same time. So I've gotten it out of the heat, and I'm gonna go ahead and stir slowly, right, and allow it to cool down. Once we start forming the crystals, that's when we start, we'll notice what temperature we're gonna write down. And so the temperature's dropping. And I'll continue stirring, and then I'll come back and let you know where we're at. Okay, so we started forming our crystals. Here. Again, as I start stirring slowly, you'll notice some crystals picking up. And so let's go ahead and record our temperature. Our temperature right there be somewhere around 40. Be at 35. And so, like again, I'll stir slowly so that hopefully you can see those crystal formation. So as you zoom in, you can see the crystals forming. And like I said, it was at the temperature of about 35. And so I'll zoom it in one more time. I'll stir it slowly so that you can see that crystallization. And like I said, we recorded our temperature. Happened nicely. And so now, like I said, let's go ahead and move on to our 4 gram one. So now we're gonna go ahead and get our 4 milliliter while we wait a little bit and cool. We're gonna get our 4 gram one, and we're gonna place it in our test tube with 5 milliliters of water. Try to get everything in there. Okay, and we're gonna set it up in our next container here. And we're gonna place it in there. I'm gonna try to lower it a little bit. Gotta make sure that everything is submerged. All right. Now go ahead and lift it up. So here we have submerged our potassium nitrate, and we're gonna stir and heat, and pay attention over here as well. All right, I'm gonna increase the heat a little bit. And there we go. So that's our 4 gram. So we'll go ahead and do the same thing, and hopefully as you can see, we're doing the same process to your 4-gram one. We're almost done dissolving. Hopefully you can see some of it as we increase the heat, it is going into solution. And so I'll continue mixing the 4-gram one, and then we'll do the same process. So just go ahead and wait until it happens. So now I'm gonna go ahead and do, whoops. I'm gonna go ahead and add my 5-gram into the test tube with 5 milliliters, right? So now we have 5-gram sample. And we're gonna do the same thing, but I'm gonna create another setup so we can add the test tube from a different part, okay? And so here we have a 5-gram part, 5 grams into 5 milliliters of potassium nitrate. Just gonna make sure I get everything in there. All right, we're good. And so I'm gonna do the same setup. I'm gonna put it into the water bath, okay? Okay, so now I'm gonna do my setup. I have both of them heating at the same time. So here I have my 5-gram, and here I have my 4-gram one. So I'm gonna go ahead and start heating this one. I'm gonna completely submerge it. Make sure that it's tight so it doesn't slip down to the bottom. And I'm gonna go ahead and stir both of these at the same time so that it can start dissolving. Okay, I'm almost done with the 4-gram one, and I'll go ahead and give you a different perspective. And as you can see now, well, we got the little label there of the Pyrex. Yep. So as you can see, I'm gonna heat up, and hopefully that one can get down. This one's almost done. And then once it's done, I'll go ahead and remove it from the heat. And then I'll allow it to cool, and then let it sit down so it can crystallize. So hopefully this one I can get it done quicker. And like I said, once we're done dissolving the solution, once we're done dissolving the salt, then we'll go ahead and remove it from the heat immediately, and then allow it to crystallize, and then we'll calculate that temperature. Okay. All right. As you can see now, our 4-gram test tube our test tube that contained 4 grams of potassium nitrate into 5 milliliters of water has dissolved, right? So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna remove it from the heat. And as we remove it from the heat, then we're gonna just allow it to cool. Okay. So here we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and record the temperature. The temperature is at about, oh man, come on now. It's at about 58, 59. Yeah, 58, 59. And that's the temperature of the solution where the crystals started forming already. If you see as I can turn. So the temperature about, I'm sorry, not 58, 40, what is it, 40, 48, 49. Okay. Man, can't have a steady hand today. And so there's our temperature, and that's the temperature that the crystals are forming at. And it's at, I think you're recording right there. Okay. All right. And again, that's the temperature that you have these beautiful, nice crystals. It definitely did crystallize a lot faster. Again, probably because of the amount of potassium nitrate that we have in there. Okay, so again, temperature is at about 40. We recorded about 48. Okay. Okay, we're almost done mixing. We're almost done dissolving our salt. I'm gonna give you, hopefully you can see right there. We're almost done with the dissolving of the 5 grams of potassium nitrate into our 5 milliliter test tube. As you can see, we are done dissolving all our potassium nitrate. So now all I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and take it out of the water bath and allow it to cool so that we can determine the temperature that it crystallizes. You got to be careful on this one. The concentration is greater, so it tends to crystallize a little bit faster. So we're at about 63 degrees there. We're at about 63 degrees. Almost there. At about 61. We're at about 60 there. At about 60. It's coming close because we're at 58. At 57. And that's it. That's the temperature right there. Let's go ahead and check. I already see the crystals forming. Let's go see if we can give you a temperature. Yeah, I say 57, 56. We're at 55 there to be exact. Temperature's dropping. 55, and you can already see the crystal formation. So, as you can see them already forming, make sure to record that temperature, and we're good to go. Go ahead and make your plot, and then just kind of extrapolate and extend the line back. Looks like a snow globe. All right. So now we're gonna move on to part C, and part C is testing the hardness of water. So we're gonna start off with distilled water, and we're gonna measure about 50 milliliters. Making a mess over here. So as I measure the 50 milliliters, we're gonna go ahead and transfer onto our Erlenmeyer flask, and then we're gonna go ahead and add some soap, a drop of soap, and we're gonna try to create a sud layer, and that'll be our reference. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna have another type of water, which is gonna be the tap water here from the lab. And so we're gonna measure the hardness of that tap water by doing the same thing. And so here, we're about to measure off our 25 milliliters. And so I'll have to do this again. And let's go ahead and see, right? So we got 25 milliliters. We're gonna go ahead and transfer onto our Erlenmeyer flask, and then we'll go ahead and measure out another 25. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and do this process again, and then we'll go ahead and add, measure out the tap water as well. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're almost there. Da, 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 do, 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 do. And we should almost be there. And that takes us up to our 25 milliliter beaker. 25 milliliters. We're gonna go ahead and transfer that to our Erlenmeyer flask. Here we have our tap water. We have the other Erlenmeyer flask. And here we're gonna go ahead and add, again, the 25 milliliters on our, let's see if we can go ahead, if I can manage. This is our tap water from the lab, and we're gonna determine the hardness. So we got really close to it. And then we're gonna go ahead and pipette from here so that we can get 25 milliliters, and then we'll go ahead and have to do this again because we need 50 milliliters from this sample as well. And we're good to go right there. That's our 25 milliliter mark. We'll go ahead and transfer to our Erlenmeyer flask, the other container. We'll go ahead and again get some more out. We need about 25. So we'll get close and then we'll pipette the rest of the way so that we don't go past it. And we're good to go. 25 milliliters, so a total of 50 milliliters of our tap water. And then what we're gonna do now is we're gonna create our standard. So here we have our DI water, and so here we have some soap. So we're gonna add 1 drop. So we're gonna go ahead and get our soap, add 1 drop of soap. And then we're gonna go ahead and close it, shake it for 10 seconds. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And so we are waiting for it to create that sud thing. Our sud layer, and so as we wait for that sud layer, we're gonna go ahead and work on our tap water. We'll go ahead and add another drop just in case, right? And so we added another drop of the soap, and so here we're gonna go ahead and cap it again and then shake for 10 seconds. Okay. And so this is gonna serve as our standard. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna do the same thing with our tap water, which we have here. I'm gonna add 1 drop at a time, and we're gonna shake for 10 seconds. And I believe it reads that we shouldn't add more than 20 drops. Okay, so we're gonna test the hardness of the water. And so we'll go ahead and start with our first addition. So we'll go ahead and add 1 drop of soap into our tap water. Go ahead and close it, and then we're gonna go ahead and shake. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And as you can see, definitely not even close to being the same. And so we'll go ahead and add another drop. So we'll go ahead and add another drop. As we add another drop of soap, we're gonna go ahead and shake for 10 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. And see if the amount of sud is about the same. And as you can see, they're not. So we'll go ahead and add another drop. Go ahead and add another drop. One more. Okay, another 10 seconds. 1, 2. I think we're almost there. I believe maybe one more and we should be there. Right, one more and we should be there. And I think we are there. All right, so it took us a total of 4 drops for tap water, and that's the only sample I have. I wish I'd have brought some more samples with me. Just go ahead and record that. Okay, now we're gonna try to purify water. And so what we're gonna do is essentially we have 4 test tubes, and here we have our muddy water, and we're gonna measure out 10 milliliters of the muddy water for each test tube. Yeah, so that means we're gonna put 10 here, 10 here, 10 here, and 10 here. And then we're gonna go ahead and add these solutions to determine which one actually purifies the muddy water better. And so we're gonna go ahead and start, right? So I went already and stirred my muddy water, and we're gonna go ahead and measure out those 10 milliliters of the muddy water. And so here we go, maybe one more, maybe one more. And so we're gonna leave one as our reference. And so, well, maybe a little bit more. And I think that'll be it. And then let's go ahead and zoom in. We said 10 mils, and we're, I don't even know why I'm putting my hand behind it, right? And so I think we are there. We're gonna go ahead and put it as our reference. And then we pour it in. And as we pour it in, we got our first test tube ready. Let's go ahead and get the others ready as well. And so we're gonna go ahead and do the same thing for the next 3 test tubes. All right. Maybe I went a little overboard on that one. Let's see if I can take out some. And I think we're good there. And so we'll go ahead and add it to our second test tube. Okay. And then we'll go ahead and do the same thing. Oops, I'm all zoomed in. Let's see here. Come on, man. Feels like my fingerprints are no longer available. So we'll do the same thing for third and fourth, and we'll come back when I'm done. So we measured out 5 milliliters of the water. And so as you can see, here we have the water, and we're gonna put that in our reference test tube. And then we're gonna set this one aside. And the next thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna measure out 5 milliliters of your 1% sodium chloride, right? So here we have sodium chloride. And I've already measured out, I've already extracted a little bit of that sodium chloride solution. So we're gonna go ahead and measure out in our test tube 5 milliliters and add it to our second test tube here. And then I'll go ahead and shake them all up right now, and we're gonna have to wait about 15 minutes. So I think we're about good right there. No, maybe a little bit more. All right, and so we're gonna go ahead and our sodium chloride, we're gonna put it in our test tube right here. That's 5 milliliters. We'll set this one aside. Just remember what that is. Now we're gonna get our aluminum sulfate solution. And so, get our beaker with our sample in it. I'm gonna measure out 5 milliliters. Let's go ahead and check. Yeah, we're good. So 5 milliliters of our aluminum sulfate into our third container. We'll set this on the side. And then we'll go continue with our last one, which is our sodium sulfate. Here we'll get our last graduated cylinder. And here we'll record. We'll continue with our additions of 5 milliliters. And then just make sure that I am recording. Should get a little bunch of bubbles there. Should be good about there. Go ahead and enter our sodium sulfate sample. Now we'll go ahead and do what we said we were about to do. Go ahead and shake. All right. Make sure we shake thoroughly our test tube. We're gonna do this for all of them. So that's the water one. This one's gonna be the sodium chloride one. And so, yeah. And then we're gonna let them sit for, what did we say? For 15 minutes. So here we got that part. And then the last one is gonna be our final one. Go ahead and get a smaller look at this all here. And let's see here. All right. Go ahead and make our shake. All right. And so now that we got our shaking done, our solutions, we're gonna go ahead and let them settle for about 15 minutes. Let me go ahead and start a timer. And we'll come back in 15 minutes. So like I said, timer set. We'll come back in 15 minutes. So as you can see, the timer's up. So the first 15 minutes are up, and let's go ahead and check our solutions. And as we check our solutions, the sodium chloride solution is gonna be the second one. So just gonna kind of stand it up straight. Let's go ahead and get a little zoom in. So that'll be the sodium chloride solution. And so as you can see, it's still a little cloudy. So let's go ahead and stand it right next to our sample. And I'm gonna try to move it. Okay, so they look kind of similar. So let's go ahead and check out another solution. So this is my solution of aluminum sulfate. So this is the aluminum sulfate solution. So as you can see, it does look a little clear, right? And so then we're gonna go to the next one. And we're gonna go ahead and test our standard here. And our standard for this one is gonna be our sodium sulfate solution. And so here again, our sodium sulfate solution compared to our muddy water, right? Our standard. Looks approximately about the same. So now we're gonna go ahead and let it wait, let it settle again for another 15 minutes, and then we'll go ahead and check again. All right, so let me set another timer. So let me zoom out so you can see all three solutions. We'll go ahead and set another timer. 15 minutes, and then we'll go ahead and check it out. So after the 30 minutes are done, we're gonna go ahead and check our 4 again. And so if you notice, this one, right, is our standard with water. And so if you notice here, we have the standard with water, and this is the sodium chloride one. And so if you notice, not much of a change has happened. And then we're gonna go on to the next one. So we're gonna compare our standard with our aluminum sulfate, and if you notice here, it did clear up quite a bit, right? And so again, this one's the one with aluminum sulfate, right? And the last one here, we have sodium sulfate. And here we have, and as you can see, very similar, right? Not necessarily much change. So that's after 30 minutes. Make sure to do your recordings. And that's the last part of our lab for this one.